Hey guys, tonight, we're popping open a bottle of mid-century mystery, shaking out a couple of calm pills, and stepping quietly, no sudden movements, please, into the pastel-hued, casserole-scented world of 1960s suburban mothers. This is not the soothing, spa-like serenity you think of when you hear calm. No, this is a story of tranquilizers strong enough to floor a Clydesdale, a society so anxious it prescribed pills for existential dread, and a group of women who could organize a bake sale, polish the silver, repress their emotions, and still find time to vacuum the ceiling, all before noon. Before we dive into the soothing chaos, go ahead and like this video and subscribe. But only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment with the wildest vintage dish you've ever tasted, or just tell me what decade your soul currently feels trapped in. Now, dim the lights, turn on a fan for that sweet, hypnotic hum, and get comfortable. Maybe even curl up under a quilt your grandmother would approve of. This is your moment of calm, before we get to the calm pills. But let's pause. Have you ever wondered, did anyone ever finish a gel, salad, or were they just for show? Did suburban moms actually find peace? Or was it just code for please don't talk to me before coffee? How did anyone keep their hair helmeted with that much hairspray and still breathe? And what exactly was in those tiny bottles in the bathroom medicine cabinet? Were they actually tranquilizers? Or just placebo pills for marital disappointment? Would you have survived a PTA meeting powered by barbiturates and silent screaming? Could you make it through an afternoon with a perky neighbor and a casserole so heavy it had its own gravitational field? Congratulations, you've just woken up in 1963. Your dress is starched, your smile is mandatory, your casserole is bubbling, and the only thing holding your sanity together is a little amber bottle of Mother's Little Helper. Welcome to suburbia's calmest crisis. You open your eyes at 5:45 a.m. to the sound of birds, the scent of percolating coffee, and the existential dread of another day in suburbia. You're already behind, and the house is somehow already awake, children bouncing, husband mumbling, and that persistent hum of you should be doing more. The first thing you notice, even before your feet hit the carpet, is that there's a faint layer of anxiety in the air, thicker than the layer of hairspray sealing your hair into a helmet. Out the window, the sky is still a sleepy grey, but your kitchen is already blinking to life, like the control center of a very judgmental spaceship. The coffee percolator chugs away, broadcasting its progress with the urgency of a distressed walrus. This is the closest thing you'll get to peace today. A single, almost spiritual, inhale of Sanka before the world comes crashing in. You try to linger in bed, but the idea is laughable. Even if your bones beg for just 5 more minutes. There are school lunches to pack, a breakfast menu to improvise, and at least one child already engaged in a suspiciously sticky science experiment somewhere in the house. Forget alarms. Your real alarm clock is the sudden shriek of, "Mom, where's my shoe?" echoing from the hallway. You move quietly, almost like a spy on a covert mission, tiptoeing past bedrooms and dodging the dog, who's already hyper and demanding to be let out. Your husband shuffles past, muttering a barely coherent greeting and asking for a tie that, somehow, never exists in the same dimension as his shirts. He's already dressed for the day, or at least for the breakfast table. Business shirt, pajama pants, and the air of a man who will never know where the Band-Aids are kept. In the kitchen, sunlight peeks through pastel curtains and lands on your to-do list, which has started to resemble a short novella. You're not just a mother or a wife. You are the engine room, the ship captain, and the entire engineering department of this vessel. Every surface is occupied, mail to sort, homework to sign, and a half-composed note to the milkman because, yes, in 1963 you can still order dairy with a scribble and a bit of hope. The radio clicks on news, weather, a jingle so upbeat it feels vaguely threatening. You think about changing the channel, but it's not worth the risk of waking the toddler or starting a cold war with your teenager over music choices. Instead, you stir instant oatmeal with the resigned precision of someone who knows that breakfast, no matter how nutritious or colorful, will end up half-eaten and abandoned in favor of Pop-Tarts at a friend's house. Meanwhile, the clock ticks louder than seems physically possible. You mentally race through your checklist. Laundry load 1. Lunches assembled with an optimism not supported by reality, and a quick scan for anything living in the bottom of a backpack. Your mind drifts to those magazine covers, women in pristine kitchens, radiant and unhurried. You wonder if their secret was better time management, a live-in maid, or just a generous prescription for mother's little helper. Outside, the neighbors are beginning to stir, their routines synchronizing with yours in a silent suburban symphony of doors slamming, cars coughing to life, and the crunch of cereal in a dozen nearly identical kitchens. You wave politely as Mrs. Carlson across the street emerges, already wearing pearls. You make a mental note to try harder, then immediately forget it, because someone just spilled milk on your last pair of clean slacks. It's only 6:19 a.m., but you're 3 hours into the work of keeping up appearances. The pressure is relentless, but you keep moving, smoothing, hustling, and when you think no one's looking, sighing deeply into your coffee cup. This is morning in a house that never sleeps, where the only real rest comes from knowing you managed, somehow, to make it look effortless. And as the school bus pulls away, and your husband disappears into the world of briefcases and plausible deniability, you stand at the sink, looking out at your well-tended lawn, already calculating how you'll do it all again tomorrow. Because in 1960s suburbia, doing enough is just the starting line, and the finish line is nowhere in sight. Scrambled eggs, toast triangles, and bacon arranged with the precision of a lunar landing. You cook for people who think breakfast appears by magic, and you'll be lucky to get the corner of a cold waffle for yourself. Let's set the scene. It's barely 6:30 a.m., and already the kitchen is buzzing with an energy that feels both urgent and aggressively cheerful. The Formica countertop glows under the kitchen's fluorescent glare, and your entire morning pivots on the smooth operation of the Sunbeam toaster. You wield a spatula like a conductor's baton, orchestrating a one-woman symphony of sizzles and pops, while 3 separate clocks tick, each one wrong in its own special way. You're operating in what could only be called triage mode. The coffee is bubbling like an active volcano, and you're pretty sure that if it stops, time itself will collapse. The smell of percolating Maxwell House is just barely strong enough to cut through the morning fog inside your head. On the stove, bacon curls and dances in the skillet, radiating the kind of comfort that makes you wish you were anywhere but here, ideally at a quiet French cafe where someone else brings you food. Meanwhile, the children wander in, rubbing their eyes, and immediately begin negotiating the breakfast menu as if it's up for debate. Can I have pancakes instead? Why is my egg touching my toast? Did you buy the good cereal? It's like running a diner. Except no one leaves a tip, and everyone expects emotional support with their orange juice. You answer with the practiced patience of a woman who knows this is only round 1. There are lunches to pack and socks to find before anyone is out the door. Your husband enters the kitchen, looking like an advertisement for early-stage confusion, and pours himself coffee with a sense of accomplishment usually reserved for summiting Everest. He glances at the neatly arranged plates and offers a vague compliment about the spread, as if you're a magician who conjured breakfast from thin air instead of a human who's been up since before dawn. He opens the newspaper and disappears behind it like a stage magician, leaving you to corral the kids and reheat his toast when he inevitably forgets it. Every plate is a mini work of art. Toast sliced diagonally, butter melting in slow, satisfying rivers, eggs that look deceptively fluffy. You use the good plates, even though you know they'll be chipped by Wednesday. And you cut the crusts off sandwiches, because suburban etiquette says a good mother never serves rough edges. There's a pyramid of grapefruit halves dusted with sugar, one of those details you saw in a magazine, which you now resent in principle but perform anyway, for the sake of appearances and a sense of order. The radio croons softly in the background, an upbeat tune about cheerful mornings, as if it's personally mocking you. The weather report promises sunshine, but your forecast includes at least one emotional storm and a high chance of spilled milk. As the minutes pass, the kitchen morphs into a battlefield of crumbs, jam smears, and half-finished glasses of juice. By the time you finally sit on the edge of a kitchen chair, in between refereeing an argument about who got more bacon, the only thing left for you is a cold waffle corner and some heroic crumbs. And yet even this is a victory. You watch the family wolf down breakfast, barely acknowledging the effort it took. Somewhere in the commotion, a child hugs you with sticky hands. Your husband gives you a distracted peck on the cheek, and you feel a fleeting glow of satisfaction before someone inevitably spills something on the freshly mopped floor. By 7:20 a.m., breakfast is over, but your performance isn't. You sweep the crumbs, soak the pans, and set the table for the next meal, because in 1960s suburbia, breakfast isn't just a meal, it's proof that you're still holding the family and the illusion of effortless perfection together, one burnt toast triangle at a time. You crack open the mirrored door to reveal a dazzling array of pastel bottles, each promising calm. The labels are soothing enough to hide the fact that you're not sure if you already took one this morning. The interior light flickers on, illuminating a pharmacy's worth of possibility in a space no larger than a shoebox. Every bottle is meticulously arranged, as if your medicine cabinet doubles as a tiny suburban art gallery dedicated to anxiety contained. The cotton candy pinks, mint greens, and cheerful yellows glow back at you with the same comforting menace as a clown at a birthday party. They promise everything: relief, serenity, mental stillness, but only if you don't look too closely at the warning labels printed in microscopic type. You lean in, scanning for the familiar script of your doctor's handwriting, which often looks like it was penned during a minor earthquake. In 1963, doctors prescribed tranquilizers the way modern people recommend podcasts. Frequently, vaguely, and with casual confidence in your ability to follow instructions. Take one as needed, he told you with a paternal pat on the hand. A phrase so open to interpretation, it could mean anything from once a week to every time one of your children breathes too loudly. Inside the cabinet, next to the calm pills, sits the rest of your bathroom arsenal. Cold cream thick enough to patch drywall, toothpaste aggressively minty, a bottle of aspirin the size of a toddler, and a can of hairspray that could qualify as a military-grade weapon. But the pills are the main attraction, the shimmering stars of your suburban solar system. They sit in their bottles like tiny promises, waiting to take the edge off everything. You stare at them and wonder, just for a moment, how many millions of women across the country are doing the exact same thing right now, cracking open their own mirrored doors, weighing their own invisible burdens. It's the quiet part of the suburban script no one talks about, sandwiched between casserole recipes and smiling magazine covers. Every woman is fine, every woman is just tired, and every woman has a little bottle tucked behind the shaving cream. Your fingers hover over the pill bottle, hesitating. Did you take one already? You try to remember, but mornings blur faster than you can track. Already you've made breakfast, settled arguments, packed lunches, ironed shirts, and started a load of laundry. Did you reach for the bottle then? Or did you just think about it? It's hard to tell. Your memory is a foggy film strip these days. Snippets of motion, flickers of emotion, a few too many soft focus moments. Your husband, of course, has no idea how often you visit this little cabinet. To him, the bathroom is a place where soap mysteriously never runs out and towels spontaneously reappear folded. He doesn't notice the new bottles that show up every so often, or the old ones that quietly vanish. He doesn't notice that sometimes you're calmer than makes sense, or quieter than you should be. He chalks it up to one of those days and leaves it at that. You grab the bottle, twist the cap, and listen to the gentle rattle inside, like a miniature maraca shaking out the soundtrack of suburban womanhood. One pill could make the morning smoother, two would definitely do it. But you stop yourself, because the boundary between coping and floating above your own life like a mild ghost is thin. And you've crossed it once or twice this month already. You close the bottle, return it to its rightful place, and catch your reflection in the mirror. For a second, you look like one of those magazine moms, lipstick perfect, hair curled, smile soft. But your eyes tell the truth. Beneath the pastel calm and polished appearance is a woman carrying the emotional weight of an entire household. A woman who cannot remember the last time someone asked her what she needed. You shut the cabinet door gently. The bottles disappear behind glass, tucked away like a secret shared between you and the bathroom wall. Another day begins, and the Suburban machine keeps turning. You straighten your blouse, adjust your hair, and step back into the hallway with a breath that's one part determination, one part caffeine, and one part unresolved tension. The cabinet stays closed, but like everything else in 1960s suburbia, it will call you back soon enough. You're not just ironing shirts, you're ironing tablecloths, curtains, handkerchiefs, and occasionally your own patience. The steam rises, your eye twitches, and you wonder if anyone else can smell your existential crisis. The ironing board dominates the center of your kitchen like some ancient altar of sacrifice. Though instead of goats, you're offering up polyester blend shirts and monogram napkins to the gods of domestic perfection. The iron hisses and sputters as it glides over yet another stubborn wrinkle, releasing a cloud of steam that could signal for rescue if only anyone was watching. This is not just a chore, it's a way of life. In 1960s suburbia, ironing isn't a once-a-week affair or something you dash off in a hurry. It's a slow, methodical ritual, a daily battle between human will and creased fabric. You could outsource it, maybe send the shirts to the dry cleaner in town, but that would mean admitting defeat. And besides, the neighbors might talk. Rumor travels faster than static through a transistor radio. And the rumor that you can't manage, your own pleats? Unthinkable. You start with shirts, methodically lining up collars, smoothing sleeves, and ensuring every button faces the same way. By the time you get to the pile of handkerchiefs, your mind begins to wander. Who is setting the standard here? Why does every single square inch of fabric in your house need to be perfectly flat? As if the Queen herself might drop by and inspect your linen closet. The answer, of course, is a conspiracy. Advertisements, mothers-in-law, and the omnipresent threat of a surprise visit from the church ladies. Magazines gleam with photos of flawless homes, glistening with the kind of perfection that makes you feel like your own house is one sneeze away from being condemned. You wonder if those picture-perfect families have a secret ironing elf, or if they, too, are just hiding a pile of wrinkled sheets under the bed. And then there are the curtains. No one told you before marriage that you'd spend your golden years pressing 7 feet of drapery, cursing quietly as the fabric bunches, and the iron cord tangles around your ankles like a petulant snake. There's a unique sort of despair that comes from burning your finger for the fourth time before 10 a.m., only to discover that your husband just closed the curtains anyway because the sun's too bright. Midway through, you start talking to the iron, making promises, striking bargains, whispering that you'll give yourself an extra spoonful of instant coffee if you just finish the pillowcases without setting off the smoke alarm. You start to suspect that the wrinkles are multiplying behind your back, like some sort of textile mitosis. You flatten a sleeve, and another crease appears out of nowhere, taunting you with its resilience. It's not all drudgery, though. Ironing is also the rare moment when the house is mostly quiet. The kids are at school, your husband is at work, and the only soundtrack is the gentle hiss of steam and the distant clatter of the mailman. It's almost meditative if you ignore the underlying sense of futility. Sometimes, you let your mind drift. You imagine living in a future where everything is permanent press, and housewives are free to pursue their dreams instead of the perfect crease. You picture robots folding laundry and irons that never need to be refilled, but then reality returns. You still have another tablecloth, a basket of napkins, and a pile of school uniforms that could double as accordion props. You soldier on, because if you don't, who will? Your family won't notice your labor unless you stop. The only thing more noticeable than a perfectly ironed shirt is a wrinkled one, and in suburbia, wrinkled shirts are practically an act of rebellion. Finally, as you unplug the iron and survey your kingdom of crisp linen and defeated polyester, you realize you've won the day's battle, but the war continues. Tomorrow, there will be more shirts, more napkins, and always, always more wrinkles. You sigh, straighten your back, and remember that, in the never-ending Sisyphus cycle of ironing, the only thing that ever really gets pressed is you. Vacuuming in the 1960s means wrestling a Hoover the size of a small bison. It whines, it shrieks, and you suspect it's actually feeding on your soul. Still, the carpet must have lines, neat, straight lines, or the neighbors will whisper. You haul the beast out of the hall closet like a reluctant dragon, dragging its wheeled carcass behind you as it thumps over thresholds and tangles itself in the legs of every chair you own. Its cord, which is somehow only 6 inches too short for every room, unspools like a trail of despair. And once it's plugged in, the machine roars to life, with a noise so deafening, your ancestors probably flinch in their graves. You don't vacuum because you love cleanliness. You vacuum because you fear judgment. The suburban carpet is sacred. There must be no crumbs, no footprints, and absolutely no lounging fibers. The real artistry, of course, is in the lines. Perfect. Parallel paths that say, this woman has control of her home and her life, even if that woman has cried 3 times this morning and thinks a casserole might be haunting her. The Hoover itself is less of a vacuum and more of a sentient creature with a mild grudge against you. It overheats within minutes. It smells like burning toast. It makes a high-pitched squeal every time it crosses a rug fringe, which is unfortunate because 97% of your home is covered in fringed rugs. The designers of the Hoover assumed that the average American woman had the biceps of a professional wrestler and the patience of a saint. You have neither, but you persist. As you push it across the living room, you daydream about simpler times, perhaps when people beat their rugs with sticks in the yard, a process that sounds physically exhausting but at least didn't involve small motors screaming directly into your ear canal. You wonder if someday technology will invent a self-cleaning floor, maybe even a robot that vacuums for you. You laugh out loud. That's science fiction. You'd sooner believe in flying cars or a husband who changes the vacuum bag without being asked. And then there's the bag. The dreaded bag. Full, heavy, suspiciously warm. It must be changed, but only after a dramatic wrestling match in which you try not to get a direct puff of 1960s household dust in your face. You manage to pull it out like it's a captured animal, trying not to spill whatever unspeakable horrors live inside. A missing earring, a Lego, an entire cracker from last week. The Hoover keeps its secrets until it explodes all over the kitchen floor. Your children, of course, do not appreciate the vacuum lines. They see clean carpet as the ultimate blank canvas for sticky hands and mystery crumbs. Your husband doesn't notice the difference between just vacuumed and hasn't been touched in a month. But the moment you skip a day, Mrs. Greeley from next door will drop by unannounced and just glance, at the floor with the same look you'd give someone who serves jello without fruit suspended in it. Still, there is a rhythm to it. A mindless, almost meditative drag and pull. You listen to the clatter of debris being sucked up, imagining each piece of lint as a tiny piece of stress leaving your body. You vacuum under the couch, around the dog, over your feelings. When you're finished, the living room hums with artificial order. It smells vaguely like warm plastic and lavender carpet powder. You stand back and survey your work. Straight lines, tidy corners, no serial bits in sight. It's not glamorous, it's not revolutionary, but it's yours. And for the briefest moment, your house looks like the magazine ad version of itself. Then someone walks across the rug in muddy socks. Of course, the Hoover feeds again tomorrow. You wield cans of mushroom soup and frozen peas, like a magician. Your casserole is structurally sound enough to withstand a minor earthquake. Dinner, apparently, must always be beige. It's 4 p.m., which means it's officially time to enter what the magazines call the witching hour and what you call let's hope the oven doesn't explode again. You're still in your house dress. Your hair has started to unhelmet itself in soft defiance. And dinner needs to be on the table by 6, or your husband will sigh in that way that implies disappointment without technically violating 1960s politeness standards. You turn to your holy trinity: Campbell's cream of mushroom soup, shredded cheddar, and something frozen, peas, beans, or possibly mystery meat if you're feeling bold. Into the mixing bowl it all goes, stirred with mechanical cheer and sealed with a generous sprinkling of crushed potato chips. The result is substantial. It jiggles a little, but you assure yourself it's part of the charm. There is an art to casseroles that outsiders don't understand. This isn't just food. It's peacekeeping. It's marital diplomacy. It's the edible equivalent of putting a doily on your emotions and baking them for 45 minutes at 375 degrees. The casserole is what holds this family together, figuratively and sometimes literally, given the amount of Velveeta involved. Your recipe card box is a museum of passive-aggressive hand-me-downs. Tuna surprise from Aunt Doris, who you suspect didn't like you. Chicken tetrazzini, which sounds fancy but mostly involves dairy and desperation. And of course, tamale pie, which is not remotely Mexican and includes neither tamales nor pie, but does contain alarming amounts of creamed corn. You preheat the oven, which immediately smells like every casserole you've ever made. It's part nostalgia, part burnt cheddar, and part existential fatigue. While you wait, you assemble your casserole with the precision of an engineer. Layered, measured, topped. If a casserole falls apart on the plate, it reflects poorly on your moral character. Meanwhile, the kids hover nearby, asking dangerous questions like, "Do we have to eat this?" Or "Why does it look like that?" You remind them, gently but with authority, that this is dinner, not a democracy. Your husband walks in, surveys the dish, and asks if it's the same thing you made last Thursday. It is, but now it has breadcrumbs. Innovation. You open the oven door and slide the dish inside, avoiding the blast of heat that smells faintly of cooked ambition. You've got 45 minutes of freedom, which you'll spend setting the table, wiping counters, folding laundry, and wondering what it might feel like to eat food that isn't shaped like a rectangle. Dinner time arrives. You place the casserole in the center of the table like an offering to the gods of suburban routine. Everyone serves themselves with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Your husband takes a bite and says, "Not bad," which in 1963 is the emotional equivalent of a standing ovation. The kids pick around the edges, looking for non-suspicious components. You settle for a plateful and a brief internal monologue about how maybe next time you'll make a salad. You won't. By 45, the casserole is half gone and half ignored. The leftovers will be wrapped in foil and placed in the fridge, where they will take up space until the weekend, when you will quietly throw them out to make room for next week's attempt. And still, you'll make another one. Because a good housewife doesn't ask if her family likes casseroles. She just rotates the ingredients until the complaints are slightly different. You clear the plates, scrape the uneaten bits into the trash, and wipe down the table. There's a sense of completion, even if it comes dusted with breadcrumbs and regret. Tomorrow, it might be tuna. The day after, hot dish. It's all the same. Warm, heavy, familiar. Because in a world of pressure cookers, polite repression, and pastel kitchens, casseroles are the one thing that never talk back. They just sit there, quiet, creamy, and unconditionally loyal. You peek through lace curtains, noting the length of Mrs. Peterson's grass and the suspicious new station wagon at the Johnsons'. It's not nosiness, it's community spirit, with a dash of competitive anxiety. In 1960s suburbia, the real action doesn't happen in city halls or courtrooms. It happens in living rooms with binoculars. Neighborhood Watch isn't an organized institution. It's a lifestyle. And you, dear listener, are a card-carrying member whether you meant to be or not. It begins with a glance. Innocent, casual, maybe even accidental. But before you know it, you've mentally tallied who didn't bring their trash cans in, who still has Christmas lights up in February, and who, heaven help them, painted their shutters chartreuse. The lace curtain is your shield. It allows you to observe without participating. From this perch, you become a silent curator of suburban order. Mrs. Jameson has repotted her azaleas again. Bold choice. The Hendersons' dog has escaped for the 4th time this week and is currently peeing on everyone's begonias. And the Carlyles? Let's just say no one has seen them at church since July, and their mailbox leans to the left like a cry for help. But you're not judging. Oh no. You're simply maintaining standards. The unwritten rules of suburbia must be upheld after all. Lawn edges must be crisp. Children must be clean. Husbands must look employed, and wives must wave from the porch with a smile that says, "We're absolutely fine, thank you." A chipped birdbath or an overgrown hedge can start a whispered revolution. The morning paper becomes a prop, conveniently open just wide enough to allow glances toward the Miller house across the street. Did they get a new car? Is that a second freezer in the garage? They claim it's for bulk food, but we all know it's for hosting. Probably got a new promotion, or maybe a third child. Either way, something's brewing, and you'll know about it before the weekend. At 10:15 sharp, the neighborhood's real intelligence network activates, the walking ladies. These are women in white sneakers, pastel sweatshirts, and expressions honed by decades of decoding micro-scandals. They stroll in pairs or trios, ostensibly for fresh air, but each walk functions as a roaming intelligence briefing. You've participated before. You know how it goes. Did you see the curtains at 428 Oak Street? Mm-hmm. Closed all day. Probably trouble. Or a migraine. Same thing. You nod solemnly and sip your instant coffee like it's diplomatic tea. Sometimes you pretend not to care. You tell yourself you're above it, that you've transcended the politics of shrub height and party invitations. And then one day, you spot Mrs. Gleason throwing away a suspiciously large number of wine bottles at 11 a.m., and suddenly you're Sherlock Holmes with a beehive hairdo. Of course, it goes both ways. You know you are being watched too. Every crooked curtain in your home feels like a potential liability. Mr. PTA meeting? People will notice. Let your husband take the trash out in socks and sandals? They will talk. Forget to edge your lawn? You might as well set fire to the homeowner's handbook, so you play the game. You wave at passing cars. Join the casserole rotation when someone gets their tonsils out, and keep a careful eye on who parks where. The neighborhood runs on mutual awareness disguised as friendliness. No one admits it out loud, but it's a delicate ballet of manners, secrets, and passive aggression. And you? You're in the front row, wearing pearls and pretending you don't see anything at all. By late afternoon, the block settles into its familiar rhythm. Lawn mowers hum. Children shriek. Barbecue smoke drifts lazily through the air. You close the curtain, satisfied. Nothing has exploded. No one has scandalized the community. Order, tenuous, beige, and lightly judgmental, has been maintained. And really, isn't that what being neighborly is all about? You complain of nerves. He calls you dear and hands you a prescription stronger than your morning coffee. No follow-ups, no questions. Just pills, reassurance, and the unspoken agreement that feelings are for Europeans. The waiting room smells like antiseptic and ancient upholstery. A radio hums softly in the corner, playing something that was probably upbeat in 1952, but now feels like a hymn for the emotionally exhausted. You sit primly on a vinyl chair, knees crossed, handbag clutched like a life raft, rehearsing how to describe your condition without sounding dramatic. You're not crazy. You're just overwhelmed, fatigued, a bit weepy. Not unlike a washing machine that's working just fine but occasionally leaks despair. When your name is called, you're ushered into a room that's a shrine to mid-century medicine, a scale no one enjoys, tongue depressors in a cracked ceramic jar, and posters warning against lady troubles with illustrations that might double as crime scene sketches. You take your seat across from the doctor, a man who has likely never washed a dish in his life, but considers himself an expert in female psychology. He peers over his glasses, nodding as you describe your symptoms: trouble sleeping, anxiety, occasional dizziness, bouts of inexplicable crying in the canned goods aisle. He doesn't write anything down. Instead, he leans back and says something reassuring like, "You're just a little run down," as if you're a toaster that needs a new fuse. Then comes the inevitable phrase, "Nothing serious. You just need a little help keeping things steady." He opens a drawer filled with prescription pads, each one ready to offer serenity in the form of a pill with a cheerful, non-threatening name. "These'll take the edge off," he says, as if your edge wasn't what was keeping you upright in the first place. You nod because this is the ritual. You speak in code, never depressed, never trapped, just tired. And he responds in kind. A gentle pat on the hand, a firm nod, and a signature that legally acknowledges your pain without ever confronting it. The appointment lasts 12 minutes, 7 of which are spent waiting for him to find a pen. You leave with a prescription for Milltown or Librium or whatever new miracle they've promised this month. It doesn't really matter. It's pastel, it's small, and it's marketed specifically to women like you, women with respectable shoes and tight smiles, who sometimes scream into dish towels when no one's home. You tuck the slip into your purse next to a packet of tissues and a peppermint, both of which have also tried and failed to make you feel better. Outside the office, the world continues as if nothing has happened. You pass other women on the sidewalk, their expressions a perfect mirror of your own. Pleasant, polite, and slightly unhinged beneath the surface. You wonder how many of them have prescriptions, how many of them cried during the morning news, how many of them were called brave for doing the emotional labor of a small nation while smiling through it. Later that night, your husband will ask how the appointment went. You'll say, "Fine," and maybe, "He gave me something to help me sleep." He'll nod, relieved that the problem has been filed under solved, and return to his newspaper. You'll pour yourself a glass of milk, take the pill, and stare out the kitchen window while it dissolves into your bloodstream and everything softens, your thoughts, your muscles, your edges. You don't feel fixed, but you feel quieter. And in 1960s, suburbia, silence is often mistaken for wellness. Because the truth is, the doctor visit wasn't about healing. It was about maintaining the performance, keeping things smooth, steady, beige. And thanks to that tiny pill, you'll be able to keep smiling through tomorrow's casserole, tomorrow's vacuuming, tomorrow's loneliness, just as long as no one asks how you're really feeling. You sit in a folding chair, sipping weak coffee and smiling at the woman who will later try to sabotage your bake sale. Parliamentary procedure meets passive aggression, and everyone is a little bit sedated. The meeting is held in the multipurpose room of the elementary school, a space that smells faintly of crayons, paste, and institutionalized disappointment. You arrived 5 minutes early, which was 15 minutes too late. All the good chairs are gone, and you've been left with a metal folding seat that appears to be both structurally unsound and emotionally resentful. You perch, one stiff knee away from a full leg cramp, and glance around at the sea of smiling women in pastel sweater sets. There is an energy here, not the upbeat, cooperative energy of a charity event or a church potluck. No, this is the tight, humming tension of a Cold War summit where everyone brought their own baked goods. The PTA, Parent-Teacher Association, is a deceptively wholesome title. What it really stands for is perpetual tension and ambition. Because here, in this fluorescent-lit arena, suburban mothers engage in bloodless but brutal combat for the highest social honor available. Vice Chair of the Enrichment Subcommittee. The president of the PTA opens the meeting with the dry authority of someone who's been awake since 5 a.m. and isn't afraid to remind you. She's reading from an agenda typed on a mimeograph machine, and the smell of damp ink wafts through the room like a nostalgic threat. You nod along, feigning interest in the discussion about field trip budgets and new cafeteria trays, while mentally preparing your counteroffensive against Karen Wexler, who definitely planted the idea that your brownies might have been store-bought. The woman next to you whispers a joke, something about the treasurer's new haircut, and a passing resemblance to a game show host. You smile, grateful for the camaraderie, but you do not let your guard down, because last month she accidentally bought the same dress you wore to the spring fundraiser. Accidentally. Sure, the meeting inches forward, motion by motion, vote by excruciating vote. Someone suggests bringing in a guest speaker for Career Day. Something exciting, like a fireman. Someone else counters with a woman doctor, which is met with polite murmurs and one audible gasp. The secretary scribbles notes furiously, recording each suggestion with the solemnity of a courtroom stenographer who knows this transcript may one day be used in a neighborhood tribunal. Eventually, the conversation shifts to the bake sale, the real gladiator event. Who will organize? Who will bring what? Will there be rules about labeling nuts, or is it still considered weak to acknowledge allergens? The room suddenly becomes 10 degrees colder as Mrs. Lindstrom volunteers to lead, which really means she's seized control with the calm, ruthless efficiency of a corporate takeover. You agree to bring lemon bars, but only because your apple pie was cruelly dismissed last year for being too tart. You remember. You always remember. And all the while, the coffee sits in its giant aluminum urn, slowly congealing into something not unlike bitter gravy. You sip it anyway, because it gives your hands something to do. You glance at the clock, 27 minutes to go. Not that anyone will end on time. There's always one parent who wants to ask about why their child didn't get picked for safety patrol. Again, when the meeting finally adjourns, there's a polite smattering of applause, the kind you'd give a community theatre performance that tried its best. You gather your papers, your purse, and what's left of your dignity, and begin the slow parade out to the parking lot. You exchange goodbyes with your fellow gladiators, who smile warmly and compliment your casserole dish, while mentally plotting how to unseat you from next year's decorations committee. Because in the wild, caffeine-fueled world of PTA meetings, survival isn't about who's nicest. It's about who can appear nicest while quietly sharpening their lemon zester behind your back. Girdles, pantyhose, bullet bras, and enough hairspray to trigger localized ozone depletion. You suit up every morning ready for battle. Your war paint is your lipstick. Your shield is your smile. It begins at the vanity, sometime between the third cup of coffee and the moment a child shrieks because they can't find their shoes. You peer into the mirror, an artifact of chrome and regret, and begin the sacred ritual of transformation. First comes the cold cream, then the foundation, then a delicate dusting of powder so fine it could mummify your pores until next Thursday. You draw your eyeliner with the steadiness of a surgeon and the desperation of a woman who hasn't blinked since 6:15 a.m. Mascara is applied with trembling reverence, one eye at a time, while your mouth hangs open in the universal expression of cosmetic concentration. Lipstick comes last, always red, always matte, always slightly threatening. The final swipe is less about beauty and more about control, because if your lipstick is perfect, then maybe everything else is, too. Next, you approach the closet, a pastel battlefield of taffeta, wool, and reinforced polyester. Today's uniform, a belted dress in a color described as dusty, rose by a woman named Midge, who probably invented it. It matches your shoes, your handbag, your nail polish, your soul. You ironed it last night and again this morning because you're competing in the unspoken Olympic event of who has the most wrinkle-free existence. Now comes the real torture device, the girdle. It's less an undergarment and more a medieval compromise between pride and circulation. You wriggle into it like a sock over a cantaloupe, yanking and contorting until your body is compressed into a shape deemed presentable by post-war marketing teams. You can't breathe, but at least you don't jiggle. You fasten your stockings to the garter with trembling hands, praying the elastic doesn't snap and take out an eye. The bullet bra is next. It's not a bra so much as an architectural achievement. Pointy, padded, and prepared for launch. Designed by men. Obviously, your silhouette now suggests a Cold War-era torpedo, which is exactly what the culture demands. A woman who looks like she could either seduce or sink a ship, but never both at the same time. You spray your hair, liberally, obsessively, until each strand is locked in place like an aerial antenna. It's not just styling, it's reinforcement. Your hairstyle must endure wind, humidity, PTA meetings, emotional breakdowns, and possibly nuclear fallout. You've developed lung capacity specifically designed to hold your breath during the spraying process so you don't pass out while trying to preserve your dignity. Now that you're suited up, you accessorize. Clip-on earrings, a brooch shaped like a dove or an aggressively peppy flower, and gloves if you're leaving the house. You grab your handbag, which weighs approximately as much as a bowling ball and contains everything from tissues to tranquilizers, just in case the casserole turns on you. And finally, the smile, polished, practiced. Pleasant enough to deflect criticism, but not so bright that someone thinks you're trying too hard. It's your most powerful weapon, an emotional silencer that says, "I'm fine. Everything's fine. Please ignore the existential dread under my Revlon. You're dressed for a grocery trip, yes, but also for the possibility that you might run into your husband's boss's wife, the PTA vice chair, or your own mother-in-law. You are the frontline representative of your family's reputation, and you must not falter. Not even at the butcher's. By 9 a.m., you've already sweated through the underlayer of your outfit. Your face is cracking slightly at the corners. Your nylons itch like 1,000 polite bees. But you keep moving, because this is the armor. This is the costume. This is the price of belonging to the beautiful housewife industrial complex. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Because fashion in the 1960s isn't about expression, it's about expectation. And darling, you're expected to win every single day, while cinched, sprayed, and smiling like your organs aren't being slowly rearranged. You glide through the aisles in heels, list in hand, as if anyone actually sticks to a list. You're judged not only on your produce, but also your mascara and your coupon clipping skills. The grocery store is not a place of nourishment. It is a gauntlet, a psychological obstacle course masquerading as a food emporium. You walk through the automatic doors like a knight entering a coliseum, except your armor is a freshly ironed skirt suit. Your sword is a metal cart with a wobbly wheel, and your fiercest weapon is a polite smile that hides both fatigue and the crushing realization that you forgot the condensed milk. The air inside is cold and faintly lemon-scented, a mix of waxed floors and unspoken expectations. Music trickles down from tinny speakers, soft and eerie like the soundtrack to a dream where you're forever trapped in aisle 9, trying to find the right brand of tuna while someone breathes too loudly near the yams. Your list, handwritten in blocky, aspirational cursive, is more suggestion than scripture. It was compiled in haste, between ironing napkins and mediating sibling turf wars. You already know it's incomplete. You also know the list isn't what really matters. What matters is the performance. Navigating the produce section with grace. Avoiding the canned meats aisle unless you want to be judged. And selecting fruit that is ripe but not too ripe, lest someone suspect you don't know how to store a cantaloupe properly. Other women are here too, your peers, your rivals, your unspoken soulmates. You eye their carts, they eye yours. A pack of pre-sliced cheese singles, bold, 3 frozen dinners, desperate. A bag of marshmallows not connected to a child's birthday party, reckless. There is an entire coded language in cart contents, and you are fluent in its implications. You stroll the aisles in pumps, your ankles screaming in a register only dogs and suppressed emotions can hear. Your lipstick is still intact, your hair unyielding. You maintain posture even while scanning shelves for evaporated milk. Somewhere between the canned soup and paper towels, you begin to forget why you're even here. Was it flour or sugar you needed? Baking powder or baking soda? Your brain offers nothing but static and an echoing whisper. Beige buy, something beige. You pass the meat counter and nod at the butcher, who calls you Hon and wraps your roast in brown paper like a state secret. You smile back, grateful for the brief human interaction that doesn't involve a child yelling about socks. Nearby, a woman you recognize from church stands too long near the ice cream. You both pretend not to see each other. It's unspoken code. If we meet in frozen foods, it never happened. The checkout line is its own purgatory. The cashier, a teenage boy with the emotional depth of a potato, scans your items with the enthusiasm of a sloth on sedatives. You clip your coupons quickly, hoping to project frugality without tipping into desperation. Behind you, someone tuts. You don't turn around. The tuts are ambient noise, like traffic or societal pressure. As you bag your groceries yourself, because of course you do, you notice you've accidentally purchased 3 different types of gelatin and a family-sized jar of pickles. You don't remember grabbing them. You don't even like pickles. It's fine. This is fine. You'll find a way to turn it into a salad or a coping mechanism. Back in the car, you take a moment. You remove your gloves, adjust your lipstick in the rearview mirror, and take a deep breath that smells faintly of bananas and existential fatigue. You did it. Another week, another cart of food to be transformed into meals, memories, and emotional glue. Because grocery shopping in 1960s suburbia isn't about food, it's about optics, appearances, and the exhausting illusion that, if you just choose the right melon, everything will turn out okay. Sticky hands, spilled milk, endless noise. You chase, scold, soothe, and wonder how your mother did this without a dishwasher or medication. Your day begins with a scream. It's not yours yet. It's one of the children, possibly the younger one, though in the fog of 6:12 a.m., voices blend together into one long screech of hunger, injustice, and socks that feel wrong. You roll out of bed, careful not to wake your husband, who sleeps like he's being paid to model unconsciousness, and step directly onto a Lego, a fitting start. Breakfast is a battlefield. The kitchen counter becomes a triage station for toast, tantrums, and half-hearted cereal negotiations. One child insists on only eating the marshmallows out of their cereal. The other weeps because their orange juice tastes sad. You wipe sticky fingerprints from every visible surface with a damp rag, and the dead-eyed determination of someone who's already done this 1,403 times and will do it again tomorrow. You are a chef, referee, detective, emotional support animal, and unpaid Uber driver all before 8 a.m. You pack lunches with surgical precision, only to be told later that the sandwich touched the apple and was thus rendered inedible. Meanwhile, your son has glued construction paper to the dining room wall in what he calls a gift for the president. You admire the ambition. You do not admire the adhesive. The soundtrack of your day is a blend of questions, complaints, and mysterious thuds. You can't remember the last time you sat for longer than 45 seconds without someone needing juice, a band-aid, or to tell you that Darlene said butts are illegal. You are now the arbitrator of playground law and the Supreme Court of sibling injustice. You sentence one child to a 10-minute timeout and another to write, "I will not put marbles in the toaster 100 times." By mid-morning, the living room looks like it was looted by a gang of sugar-fueled raccoons. Dolls with missing limbs lie next to crayon murals on the wall. The dog is wearing a tutu. You find yourself saying things like, "We do not put grapes in our ears," and "Why is the goldfish in the bathtub?" without blinking. You've transcended normal speech. You now communicate in parental koans. Nap time is a myth. One child boycotts sleep on philosophical grounds, while the other claims they already slept with their eyes open at breakfast. Instead of the midday peace you long for, you spend your precious minutes of quiet time scrubbing grape juice from the curtains and trying to remember if you brushed your own teeth. You probably didn't. You might do it tomorrow. Afternoons are a blur of homework, spilled glue, and the gentle art of negotiating with someone who has strong opinions about which sock goes on which foot. You help them build a shoebox diorama of Jamestown using only dried pasta and resentment. When they ask you what the word futility means, you briefly consider using your own life as an example but opt for the dictionary. Dinner is another production. and the audience is brutal. "This chicken tastes like it's mad at me," your youngest says, while dramatically sliding off their chair like a Victorian fainting woman. You smile through clenched teeth and remind them of starving children in far-off lands. They ask if you can mail the chicken to them. You do not have the energy to explain international food safety laws. Eventually, bedtime arrives, not with a peaceful yawn but with chaos, bargaining, and an Olympic-level debate about the ethics of brushing teeth. After 3 stories, 1 lost teddy bear, and a meltdown over a shadow shaped like a duck, they finally sleep, and the house is quiet. At last, you sit on the couch, staring at the wall, wondering if you always had this twitch or if it's new. You love them, fiercely, completely. But some days, most days, they love you with the intensity of a flash mob in a porcelain store. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Because that's what moms do. Even when their coffee's cold, their hair's undone, and someone has drawn a mustache on the cat. The clock strikes 5. It's time to combine gin, vermouth, and a deep sigh. You pretend it's glamorous, but mostly it's anesthesia for your nerves, and a way to make the ham loaf taste edible. You reach for the shaker like it's a sacred relic, because in 1960s suburbia, cocktail hour isn't just a pleasant diversion, it's a coping mechanism wrapped in crushed ice and served with a twist. The clink of ice cubes against glass is the unofficial anthem of every housewife whose nerves are shot, whose casserole is overcooked, and whose children just dumped a full box of Rice Krispies into the heating vent. It's not that you're drinking too much. It's that you're drinking just enough to survive the psychological trapeze act of modern domesticity. 1 stiff drink to quiet the buzz of expectations. 2. If your mother-in-law drops by. 3. And suddenly, everything from your husband's socks to the state of the economy feels manageable. You start with a gin martini because it's sophisticated, or at least that's what the magazines promised. The first sip burns, but in a cleansing way, like it's purifying your insides of PTA tension and undercooked emotional trauma. You glance at the TV, where a smiling couple sips highballs while lounging on mid-century modern furniture. They don't seem to have children, or inner thoughts. By now, your husband is home, loosening his tie and launching into a monologue about office politics and the sandwich he had for lunch. You nod, glass in hand, performing the role of supportive listener, while silently wondering how it's possible for someone to describe a ham on rye in 5 acts. He pours himself a whiskey, oblivious to the fact that you've already started your second martini and are considering a third if he says the word spreadsheet again. The kids, sensing your attention is elsewhere, begin low-grade rebellion. Someone is trying to juggle with dinner rolls. Someone else is arguing that homework is a suggestion, not a requirement. You sip, you exhale, you smile at your husband and mouth. It's your turn. He doesn't notice. There's an art to the cocktail hour. The right glass, the right garnish, the right balance of social lubricant and emotional tranquilizer. You've perfected the technique. You stir when you want to appear calm. You shake when the day has been extra unkind. Either way, the outcome is the same. A small, chilled oasis in the desert of your responsibilities. Sometimes, neighbors drop by just to say hi, which is code for, let's compare who's closest to a nervous breakdown. You smile, offer them a drink, and try not to let them see the basket of unfolded laundry hiding behind the couch. They sip their highball and nod politely at your children, who are reenacting a scene from Lord of the Flies in the background. No one mentions it. Eventually, you'll move on to dinner, something that was once meat, now camouflaged beneath layers of cream sauce and crushed crackers. You'll eat it with one hand while balancing your drink in the other, because heaven forbid you take a single bite without accompaniment. Your husband will toast to another day down, And you'll clink glasses, knowing he has no idea what your day actually looked like. By 7 p.m., the cocktail has done its job. Your nerves are dulled, your smile is slightly more sincere, and your children look a little blurrier. The dishes still need washing, the dog still needs walking, and the Hoover still haunts the hallway. But for now, you exist in a soft, golden haze of citrus and denial, because in 1960s suburbia, cocktail hour isn't just tradition, it's survival. And if you can't fix your problems, at least you can stir them over ice and serve them with a lime. You clean the kitchen, turn your back, and it's dirty again. You begin to suspect your children are conducting psychological warfare. The day starts with crumbs. Always crumbs, toast crumbs, cereal crumbs. Unidentifiable crumbs that defy logic and cling to linoleum like their lives depend on it. You sweep them up, only for a fresh battalion to appear moments later, as though the floor itself has a secret crumb-producing mechanism designed to test your resolve. You sigh, straighten your apron, and accept your fate. Today, like every day, you will wage a quiet, unending war against mess. Cleaning is your full-time job, and also your hobby, your therapy, and your punishment for daring to live indoors. The 1960s home is a machine that runs on elbow grease and unreasonable expectations. Every surface must shine, every corner dusted, every magazine placed just so, or else someone might drop by, unannounced, with opinions. You start with the kitchen. You've already done the breakfast dishes. But somehow, the sink has refilled itself like it's drawing from a cursed aquifer of dirty spoons and sticky glasses. There's a smear of jam on the counter that laughs at your sponge. You scrub harder. The jam laughs harder. You briefly fantasize about burning the house down and starting fresh in a cave. A clean, silent cave with no toast. The living room is next. You fluff the throw pillows. Again. You vacuum the carpet. Again. You realign the doilies on the armchairs with the precision of a heart surgeon. You dust the knickknacks, ceramic cats, miniature windmills, and that one creepy porcelain child that was a wedding gift and now silently judges you from the mantel. The coffee table must be spotless. God forbid anyone places a drink without a coaster. You've built an entire psychological fortress on the placement of coasters. You move to the bedrooms, where the beds are made with military crispness, despite being immediately disassembled by children practicing somersaults. Sheets must be tucked, pillows must be fluffed, and stuffed animals must be arranged in what you call orderly neutral formation, lest bedtime become a political uprising over who gets to sleep next to the bear with the bow tie. Laundry is a beast all its own. It regenerates. You could do 6 loads in a single day and still find a sock colony staging a rebellion under the couch. Whites must be white. Colors must not bleed. And God help you if your husband's undershirts come out pink again. You iron, you fold, you starch. You question your life choices. And then there's the bathroom. Oh, the bathroom. You bleach, scrub, and polish it until it smells like a swimming pool in a hospital, but someone inevitably sneaks in with muddy shoes or suspiciously sticky fingers. The mirror always has toothpaste speckles. The soap is always melting in a dramatic fashion. Towels that you just laundered now smell like the inside of a football cleat. You clean it anyway. By mid-afternoon, your back hurts. Your hands are raw, and you've developed a twitch in your left eyelid. You pause to look at your gleaming kitchen, your sparkling floors, and your perfectly symmetrical throw pillows. You breathe deeply. For 5 glorious minutes, your home looks like a Sears catalog come to life. And then someone spills Kool-Aid. You do not scream. You do not cry. You dab at it with a dish towel, breathing through your nose like a 1960s monk, achieving spiritual transcendence via floor wax. This is your life. Not glamorous, not tidy, not ever truly finished. Because housework isn't a task. It's a loop, a purgatory, a treadmill set to the speed of social expectation and wrapped in linoleum. You will never be done. You will never catch up. But still, you clean. Not for praise, not even for cleanliness, but because it's what you do. Because someone has to fight the jam. And for now, that someone is you. You sit in a circle, nibbling cookies and comparing children's achievements. No one mentions the existential dread, just the price of pork and the newest tranquilizer. The sun is high, the curtains are drawn, and you are firmly trapped in someone else's living room. It smells like potpourri, aquanet, and quiet desperation. The furniture is firm, the lighting too bright, and the conversation teeters on the edge of a nervous breakdown wrapped in gingham and denial. This, dear listener, is the afternoon social, a sacred ritual of polite suffering and unspoken competition. You sit with perfect posture on a floral print couch that feels like it's judging you. Your gloves have been removed. Your hat is perched neatly on your lap. Your smile is dialed to moderate warmth, and your eyes scan the room like a Cold War spy looking for a safe exit. It's not that you dislike these women, though, let's be honest, some of them definitely stole your Jell-O salad recipe. It's that you're all playing a game no one admits exists. The rules are simple: appear cheerful, be vaguely impressive, and never, ever show vulnerability. You sip your tea, pinky just so, while someone launches into a monologue about their son's reading level. You nod, mentally calculating whether your child is smarter or just better at hiding comic books inside their math book. Either way, you'll mention their spelling bee ribbon later, casually, like it just slipped out. The conversation hops from children's milestones to casserole secrets to backyard rose fungus. It's like speed dating for anxiety. You nod along as someone discusses her husband's new promotion, subtly implying her marriage is thriving and not just held together by meatloaf and midole. Another woman mentions the rising cost of pork chops, and a chorus of agreement breaks out, because no matter how repressed you are, everyone has feelings about pork prices. Eventually, the talk turns, inevitably, to medication, quietly. Like it's a shared secret, passed under the table with the sugar bowl. Someone says they've started taking a little something to help with the nerves. Another nods and offers a name you recognize from your own medicine cabinet. A third mentions how it takes the edge off the noise, and no one needs her to clarify what noise. We all know. You smile and say nothing. Your own pills are neatly tucked in your purse, inside a monogrammed case that once held mints. You took one before coming, just to make sure your smile wouldn't crack and your hands wouldn't tremble when someone inevitably brings up potty training. You glance at the tray of cookies. Someone brought homemade shortbread. You take 2 out of passive-aggressive spite. The hostess glides in with a fresh pot of coffee, and you marvel at how she makes it all look effortless. Never mind that you saw her mascara smudged on the bathroom mirror. The illusion is everything. No one is tired. No one is worried. No one cried in their car on the way here because they forgot to thaw the chicken and couldn't face another night of gelatin-based dinner. The clock ticks. Conversation loops. You laugh at something unfunny, compliment someone's brooch, and promise to exchange recipes. You never will. Eventually, you gather your gloves, your handbag, and your dignity. You kiss cheeks, thank your hostess, and step back into the afternoon sunlight, squinting like a prisoner emerging from a pastel cell. Back home, you exhale deeply. the kind of exhale that releases the pressure of an hour spent performing serenity while suppressing a primal scream. You kick off your heels, unhook your bra with military efficiency, and make yourself a drink that contains more gin than mixer. Because the afternoon social isn't about connection, it's about containment. A chance to gather, smile, and pretend for one more hour that everything is absolutely, totally fine. And somehow, pretending is the hardest part. You're told you should feel grateful. Instead, you feel exhausted. The American dream, it turns out, comes with a lot of fine print and a prescription for something calming. From the outside, your life looks perfect. The white picket fence gleams. Your lawn is edged with military precision. Your children wear matching socks most of the time. Your husband mows the grass on Sundays and waves at neighbors like he's starring in a detergent commercial. To anyone driving past, your home radiates stability, order, and wholesome suburban success. But the inside story? It's messier, louder, stickier. The American dream, as advertised, forgot to mention the unpaid labor, the social pressure, and the fact that achieving effortless perfection requires approximately 8 hours of effort before breakfast. You're constantly reminded that you have everything a woman could want, but no one seems concerned that you also have everything a woman could resent. The expectations begin the moment your feet hit the floor. You must be grateful for your home, your appliances, your children, your marriage. Gratitude is mandatory, even when exhaustion sits on your chest like a slightly polite elephant. And if gratitude doesn't come naturally, there's a pill for that. Several, actually, prescribed with a smile and a paternal pat on the shoulder, as if reassurance itself were a household chore you shouldn't make a fuss about. Every magazine, every advertisement, every chirpy hostess on television reinforces the same message. You should be thrilled. Thrilled to fold laundry. Thrilled to make dinner. Thrilled to vacuum while wearing pearls. Thrilled to smile through burnout so severe it has its own orbit. You have so much, they say. Don't forget to smile, as if your facial expressions are responsible for holding together the entire moral fabric of the neighborhood. Reality, however, knows none of these rules. Reality is finding your toddler coloring the dog with lipstick while the casserole burns. Reality is balancing your checkbook at midnight because the rising cost of pork just torpedoed your meal planning. Reality is answering the same question, where are my shoes? 15 times in one morning, with steadily decreasing enthusiasm. Reality is wiping counters, noses, and tears, often in the same 60% seconds. You try to keep up, you really do. You fold towels with Japanese precision. You iron shirts until the creases could slice bread. You bake cookies from scratch, even though every cell in your body begs for store-bought. You monitor your children's social standing like a CIA operative, and all the while, you maintain the appearance of calm, grace, and emotional stability. But beneath the tidy facade, there's a persistent whisper, is this it? Is this all there is? Of course, you can't say that out loud. Not to your mother, who survived the depression and thinks exhaustion builds character. Not to your friends, who all seem to have mastered the art of pretending. Not to your husband, who will respond with a helpful, maybe you just need more rest, as if rest grows naturally on the kitchen windowsill next to the basil. So you keep going, one chore, one errand, one polite nod at a time. You prepare meals, host socials, attend PTA meetings, sign permission slips, rotate casseroles, and maintain the illusion that everything is effortless. And on especially overwhelming days, the medicine cabinet beckons with pastel bottles and promises of serenity. Not joy, not fulfillment, just quiet, The fine print of the American dream never said it would be meaningful. It never promised satisfaction. It promised order. Clean sidewalks, happy families in advertisements, women who smiled without cracking. But late at night, when the house is finally still, you let the truth surface. You love your family, deeply, fiercely, unquestionably, but you also crave space, a moment to breathe, a life that isn't measured by how well you hide your exhaustion. And that gap, the vast space between expectation and reality, is where so many suburban mothers live, balancing on the tightrope of gratitude and burnout, perfection and pressure, composure and collapse. You're doing your best, but the dream, it demands more than anyone should ever be asked to give. He comes home, expects dinner, and assumes the laundry folded itself. He asks about your day but zones out after you. Say carpool. He does not understand the power of casseroles. At exactly 5:38 p.m., he walks through the door like a sitcom character, briefcase in one hand, tie loosened just enough to signal that he works hard. He says, "Honey, I'm home," not ironically. You reply, "Dinner's almost ready," also not ironically. Because in this house, the script has been written and rewritten and laminated by Better Homes and Gardens. He looks around like a guest at a hotel that just happens to be staffed by his wife. The house is clean. The kids are alive. The dog didn't run away today. He doesn't notice any of this. He smells dinner. He grunts approval. He puts down his briefcase, kisses you on the cheek, and then disappears. Where does he go? That remains a mystery. Possibly the garage. Maybe the armchair. Potentially a low-level fugue state, somewhere between the sports section and a mild nap. Wherever it is, it's quiet, and you're still in the kitchen, wrist deep in dish soap, and trying to remember if you took your tranquilizer or just thought about taking it. Dinner is a performance, and he is the judge. You serve a ham loaf, which you've sculpted into something vaguely artistic. He nods while chewing. "Tastes like ham," he says, as if that were helpful. The kids complain. You smile. You all sit like the perfect family. But your mind is still spinning through tomorrow's grocery list, the forgotten PTA permission slip, and whether or not you actually switched the laundry to the dryer or just dreamt it. After dinner, he settles into his recliner, his throne, a fortress of corduroy and unspoken emotional distance. He reads the paper, as if world events will somehow soothe the fact that your middle child just spilled orange juice on the dog. He doesn't hear it. He doesn't hear most things. You tell him about your day, how the Hoover jammed, the casserole exploded, and the toddler had a meltdown because his socks were too emotional. He chuckles at the first part, glazes over at the second, and completely misses the third. He means well, but he has never once had to use a wire hanger to unclog a bathroom drain while balancing a crying child on one hip and negotiating a cold war with your oldest about broccoli. You envy his ability to compartmentalize, to come home and be home. Your work doesn't stop when the office clock chimes 5. Your workday is the entire day. You're on call for every skinned knee, every toilet clog, every mom. He's touching me that echoes through the house like a foghorn of doom. You wish, just once, you could switch places. See if he could survive a single Tuesday with 3 kids, 2 casseroles, and a grocery cart with a rogue wheel. Sometimes, he says, you should take a break. He means well, but he imagines this break as a bubble bath while he watches the children for a thrilling 6 minutes before asking if you're almost done. You once tried to read a magazine in the tub. It ended with a fire truck-themed toilet seat being thrown through the shower curtain. Still, he loves you. In his own, oblivious, can't find the ketchup even though it's right their way. He works long hours. He worries about money. He carries the pressure of being the man of the house like it's a crown made of wet cement. You both feel alone sometimes, but from opposite ends of the same vinyl sectional. He doesn't understand the quiet burnout that accumulates between laundry loads and PTA meetings. But he tries. He brings you flowers sometimes. He compliments your meatloaf. He remembers your birthday, most years. And when the kids are finally asleep, the dishes are done, and the house is temporarily still, he'll turn to you and say, "Want to watch something?" And just for a moment, it feels like companionship again, even if he falls asleep 10 minutes into the movie. Soap operas, commercials for margarine, and weather reports you could recite by heart. The television is both your companion and your jailer, and the couch is starting to remember your shape. It begins after the morning chaos subsides, after the toast crumbs are swept, the last child is deposited at school, and the dog finally stops barking at nothing. You sit down, just for a moment, just to rest your feet. You don't intend to stay long. But then, like a moth to a lava lamp, you're pulled toward the television. You switch it on, and the warm, flickering glow fills the living room like a sedative. The voices are familiar, predictable. Nobody on As the World Turns ever screams about socks or spills juice in the dog's bed. These women are dressed for cocktail parties at 10 a.m., and their problems, affairs, amnesia, and suspicious twins are almost relaxing in their implausibility. No one is concerned with casseroles or vacuum lines. No one is scraping dried oatmeal off linoleum. You don't particularly like soap operas, but you watch them religiously, because they're there, and sometimes the simple act of watching someone else's drama with expensive lighting and orchestral music, makes your own feel slightly less suffocating. Commercials come next. Gleaming countertops, happy children, lipstick that stays on through nuclear fallout. A woman in a yellow dress spins around her kitchen like she's just discovered ecstasy in a lemon-scented floor cleaner. You watch her and wonder what she's on. You suspect it rhymes with schmalium. A margarine ad tells you it's just as good as butter. You scoff. Nothing is just as good as butter. But you've been buying the margarine anyway, because the magazine said it was heart-healthy, and guilt pairs nicely with toast. Then comes the midday news. Nothing earth-shattering, just the weather, crop reports, and the occasional update on space exploration. You pretend to care about the weather, even though you haven't left the neighborhood in weeks. Still, it's nice to know that somewhere out there it might rain. Weather is something neutral to think about. Weather doesn't ask you to iron it. By noon, you've seen the same detergent commercial 3 times, and you're starting to hum the jingle against your will. You wonder if there's a subliminal message embedded in the background. Something that programs your brain to believe that a stain-free shirt is the pinnacle of human achievement. You eat lunch on the couch. Something beige, something soft, something that doesn't require thought or effort or chewing. You sip your soda and stare at the screen like it might blink first. The house is quiet, except for the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the occasional shriek from a soap opera affair gone wrong. You're not lonely exactly. You're just ambiently unspoken to. The TV doesn't judge you. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't suggest that your time might be better spent folding towels or deep cleaning the baseboards. It simply exists, a portal into a world where problems are dramatic but solvable, where makeup is flawless, and no one ever steps barefoot on a rogue Lego. But as the day stretches on, something shifts. The television begins to feel less like a friend and more like a fluorescent reminder that you haven't spoken to an adult since the grocery store cashier who commented on your coupons. The room starts to feel smaller, the couch more permanent. You shift your weight and realize you've developed a dent, literally, in both the cushion and your soul. You switch it off. Not out of disgust, but necessity. Because even background noise can start to feel like a mirror if you stare at it long enough. And you still have dinner to make, children to pick up, a house to restore to order before anyone else notices it was ever chaotic. You stand, stretch, and head toward the kitchen, humming that cursed jingle under your breath. The TV was never meant to be your lifeline. But some days, it's the only thing in the house that doesn't need something from you. Every so often, late at night, someone admits she's tired too. And for a moment, you both drop the act and laugh like you're kids again, hiding under the table at a grown-up party. It doesn't happen often, these moments of honesty, but when they do, they're electric. You're sitting on a couch that smells faintly of lavender sachets and wine, sipping from a coffee mug that definitely doesn't contain coffee, and suddenly, the facade slips. One of you says, "I'm exhausted," not in a performative, joking way, but like a whisper pulled from the ribcage, and the floodgates creak open. It's not always dramatic. You're still wearing your lipstick. You're still crossing your ankles like a lady, but your shoulders drop just slightly, and she mirrors you. It's like a secret language, micro movements of surrender. You say, "I can't remember the last time I sat down without folding laundry." She says, "I cried in the pantry yesterday and told my husband it was allergies." You both nod. You both know. You met at the PTA, or maybe at the grocery store, or possibly because your children formed an alliance against broccoli and dragged you into the same social orbit. At first, the friendship is polite. Smiles, casserole swaps, compliments about hairdos and Tupperware. But somewhere along the way, between bake sales and shared tranquilizer recommendations, you realized she's in the same quiet storm you are. There's something sacred in the shared eye roll, the whispered sarcasm behind closed doors, the casual way she can text you, "Do not come to the park." Sharon is there, and you instantly understand both the situation and the emotional stakes. You've never had to explain why Sharon's passive-aggressive lemonade stand critiques make you want to scream into a doily. These friendships are stitched together from borrowed lipstick, emergency bobby pins, and afternoons spent hiding in one another's kitchens while the children destroy something out of sight. They're not always glamorous, but they are lifelines. You don't have time for long phone calls or girls' weekends to Bermuda, but you do have 10 stolen minutes over lukewarm coffee while the kids dig a hole in the backyard you pretend not to see. You confide in each other the way war veterans swap stories. "He asked if I needed help making dinner," you say, voice flat with disbelief. "I said no. Then I made lasagna, so passive-aggressively, it could have applied for a restraining order." She laughs so hard she nearly chokes on a cracker. "Mine said I should try yoga. I told him folding towels counts." These are not Instagram-worthy moments. They don't come with coordinated outfits or carefully curated quotes about empowerment. These are the friendships of the quietly overwhelmed, the beautifully burnt out, the women who keep smiling while the dog throws up on the new rug. And in a world that tells you to be perfect, look perfect, mother perfectly, entertain with grace and minimal visible sweat, these women are your safe harbor. The ones who won't blink when you admit you fed your kids cereal for dinner, or that you let them watch TV for 3 hours because you just couldn't anymore. Some nights, you sit on the back patio, wrapped in cardigans and unspoken grief, sharing a glass of wine under string lights that flicker like old secrets. You talk about dreams half remembered, ambitions postponed, and who you were before everything got so beige. You remind each other that there's still someone underneath the crust of casseroles and carpool duty. And then, just as quickly as it began, the spell breaks. Someone's baby monitor crackles. A kid screams about socks. The wine runs out. You both stand, straighten your skirts and reattach your masks. But for that brief, glorious window you remembered, you laughed like you used to, and you weren't alone. In a world that insists you keep it together, the best friends are the ones who quietly, fiercely let you fall apart and still save you a seat at the table. You host an event for 20 screaming children, complete with paper hats and sugar-fueled chaos. You're judged not on the fun but on the originality of your cake. Someone always wins, and it's never you. Birthday parties in 1960s suburbia are not just celebrations, they're status reports. They're community theatre productions where the script includes streamers, frosting, a pony, if you're that mum, and enough comparative judgment to power a suburban Cold War. You start planning 2 months in advance, knowing full well that no one will remember your child's favourite colour, but everyone will remember whether the napkins matched the party hats. The morning of, you're up at dawn, elbow deep in batter, balloons and self-doubt. You've baked a cake from scratch, a round cake. 2 layers, with buttercream icing, piped borders, and a hand-drawn giraffe, because your daughter said she liked giraffes one time, and now it's your entire brand. You've spent 7 hours perfecting the giraffe's face. It still looks like it's seen things. The children begin to arrive in waves, tiny, sugar-craving sociopaths in shiny shoes and itchy party dresses. They come bearing gifts and the unspoken threat of total property destruction. One girl is already crying because her pigtail bow came untied. A boy is inexplicably soaking wet. No one knows how. You smile through the panic and offer them punch, which you made from a recipe torn out of Good Housekeeping and laced with just enough lemon juice to discourage second helpings. The games begin. Pin the tail on the donkey. Musical chairs. A piñata filled with off-brand candy that will later be blamed for at least 3 dental emergencies. One child throws a tantrum because he didn't win the sack race. Another punches the donkey. You try to stay calm while imagining a world where birthday parties involve quiet reading and individual cupcakes eaten at a reasonable volume. Meanwhile, the mothers circle like sharks with lipstick. They hover at the snack table, offering tight smiles and loose commentary. "Oh, you baked the cake? I usually just pick one up from Dolores at the bakery. Her fondant is divine." You nod and pretend not to care that Dolores' cakes look like they graduated from culinary finishing school while yours looks like it's mid-existential crisis. The presents are opened in a flurry of paper and mild disappointment. Your child is thrilled by a plastic tea set, less thrilled by the educational puzzle, and you make a mental note to send her mother a copy of that book your child won't even touch. "Thank you, darling," you say sweetly. Passive-aggressive gratitude is a cornerstone of suburban diplomacy. And then, the moment arrives. The cake. The great reveal. Everyone gathers. The room goes quiet. You bring it out like a sacred relic on a tray from the linen closet. Candles lit, flames trembling like your self-esteem. There is polite clapping. The kids scream. One of them says, "The giraffe looks kind of like a pig." You smile and begin slicing, each piece carefully portioned, carefully presented, and carefully judged by the other mothers who claim not to judge. The afternoon blurs. There's frosting on the curtains. A balloon floats ominously in the toilet. You've started cleaning before the last child has even left. Your feet ache. Your ears ring, and your kitchen looks like it was bombed with sprinkles. Your child hugs you. That was the best birthday ever, they say, with cake on their face and joy in their voice. And just for a second, it all feels worth it. Until you remember, you've been invited to another party next week. And that mom? She rented a magician and a cotton candy machine, and her cake had a rotating carousel on top. With working lights, you sigh, pour yourself something strong, and start Googling. Well, in the 1960s, mentally preparing for a library visit, research. How to build a small Ferris wheel out of sugar and resentment, because the arms race waits for no one. One pill for the nerves, one for sleep, maybe another for the afternoon slump. You start to wonder if you'd notice the difference if you skipped a day, or if the world would. It's not that you want to take them, it's just that by 10 a.m., you've already refereed 3 sibling battles, fielded 2 passive-aggressive phone calls, and cleaned up something that looked suspiciously like jam but wasn't anywhere near the kitchen. The bottle is there. It glimmers softly in the medicine cabinet like a tiny lighthouse promising peace in a sea of cereal spills and unmet expectations. They call it a tonic, a mood stabilizer, something to help you cope. The label is pastel, like everything aimed at women in the 1960s, and it makes no promises beyond serenity. It doesn't tell you how it works. It doesn't have to. You pop the capsule, swallow with lukewarm coffee, and wait for the world to fuzz at the edges just enough to stop noticing the crusted milk on the countertop or the soul-sapping emptiness of daytime television. This is your secret routine. Not that it's really a secret. Every woman you know has her own version. One friend calls hers courage tablets. Another jokes that she's just staying ahead of the storm. You all laugh, lightly, like it's a shared inside joke, even though the punchline feels like a slow, collective unraveling. You take another in the afternoon. Just a small one, because the vacuum cleaner is screaming again, and the casserole's gone wrong, and your husband is due home in 30 minutes expecting a warm dinner and a cooler wife. The pill smooths the sharpness. You don't feel happy. Exactly. But you don't feel anything in particular, which is a step up from earlier, when you felt like dragging the Hoover into the yard and setting it on fire. You've tried not taking them once, on a Tuesday. It went poorly. You didn't scream. You didn't cry. But you felt everything. The boredom, the pressure, the eternal loop of laundry, the way your husband said, "You look tired," like it was both an observation and a performance review. By dinner, your eye was twitching, your smile was mechanical, and your casserole tasted like resentment. So now, you take them like vitamins. You don't abuse them. You manage them, like you manage the house. The kids, the appointments, the fantasy that you are thriving in a world where your worth is measured by the shine of your floors and the tightness of your girdle. Your doctor prescribes them with the same detachment he uses to ask about your husband's promotion. "You seem a little overextended," he says, with the warmth of a coat rack. This will take the edge off. He doesn't ask why you're overextended. He doesn't ask how you're holding up. Just signs the script and sends you home with a nod and the unspoken agreement that we don't talk about feelings here, not in America, and definitely not in beige kitchens. You wonder sometimes, if you didn't have the pills, would anyone notice? Would your family still see the calm, smiling version of you? Would they notice the difference if your laughter had an edge? If your hands shook when you picked up the milk? Would you? The answer terrifies you, so you push it away. Instead, you make dinner, you set the table. You hum along with the radio while placing Jell-O in the fridge like it's a reasonable dessert. You float just above the surface, buoyed by chemistry and obligation, because the world expects you to keep it together, to glide, unruffled, through tantrums, to-do lists, and emotional vacuum. And so you do, thanks to your little helpers. They don't fix anything, but they make it quieter. And quiet, in this life, is sometimes the closest thing to peace. You look in the mirror and see someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's dinner. You wonder where you went. You decide to check after you clean the bathroom. The woman staring back at you is well-groomed, well-mannered, and, If you squint, vaguely familiar. Her lipstick is Coral Crush. Her apron is floral. Her smile is thin and precise, like it was ironed into place. She looks like a magazine ad, except more tired, and with faint pancake batter on her collar. You adjust your blouse. You fix your hair. You try to remember the last time you wore something that didn't need to be machine washable. You used to love red. You used to wear jewelry that jingled and smelled like nightclubs. Now you wear beige. Not because you like it, because it hides stains better. Your name is still yours, legally, but no one uses it. Your mom to your kids, honey to your husband, Mrs. Clark to the school receptionist. When you answer the phone, people ask about dinner plans or school fundraisers or neighborhood potlucks. No one says, "How are you?" And honestly, you've stopped asking yourself. Once, you had hobbies. You used to read novels, real ones, not the kind with recipes in the margins. You took a painting class before the kids. Your brushstrokes were wild and bold. Now the only painting you do is touch-ups in the hallway because someone launched a Tonka truck into the drywall again. You miss being a person. A whole one. Not just the collection of tasks you perform in rotation like a waitress at a 24-hour diner that only serves expectations and jello molds. You miss silence that isn't suspicious, sleep that isn't interrupted, thoughts that aren't automatically arranged in list format. The thing is, it wasn't supposed to feel like this. Suburbia was supposed to be safe, secure, predictable, and it is. Right up to the point where you realize predictability can become a prison with decorative curtains. You're grateful, of course. You have a house. You have children. You have appliances that sing to you, if you press the buttons just right. But you also have an aching absence where yourself used to be. Sometimes, late at night, you sit in the hallway after the house has gone quiet and just exist. No laundry, no chatter, no casserole timer ticking down like a bomb. Just you and the dim glow of a nightlight and the echo of who you once were. You remember her. She was clever. She had opinions. She laughed too loudly at movies. You wonder where she's gone. The world doesn't make space for that question. It prefers you stay busy, productive, pleasant. There's no checkbox on the to-do list for find myself. There's no time slot between vacuuming and meal planning for feel human again. So you nod politely. You say you're fine, and you move through your day like a very polite ghost who folds towels with precision. And here's the twist. Nobody notices. Not because they don't love you, but because you're doing such a good job disappearing quietly. You keep the house running. You keep the fridge full. You keep the chaos at bay. You're so good at being everyone else's everything. It never occurs to anyone that you might be running on fumes. You tell yourself you'll carve out time. Next week, after the science project, after the PTA bake sale, after the flu makes its way through the house like a biblical plague, you'll rediscover your voice. You'll dust off your old dreams, just as soon as you clean the bathroom, because that's what always happens. You see the pile of towels, the toothpaste splatter, the toys in the hallway, and the thought slips away like steam from a kettle. You wipe the mirror. She's still there. Faint, but present. And maybe tomorrow you'll start looking for her. Maybe. You read a magazine article, yes, the one with the smiling housewife holding a turkey, and it quietly suggests you ask your doctor if you feel less than yourself. You laugh, but the laughter feels a little thin. Because of course you feel less than yourself. That's the entire point of this routine, isn't it? To sand down the edges, to subdue the raw, to quiet every strange and inconvenient emotion that doesn't fit inside the neat, plastic Tupperware of suburban life. You didn't sign up to disappear. You just wanted to feel better. And somewhere along the way, the solution became the sedative. It starts off gentle. A little something to help with your nerves. You're not sleeping, you're not smiling quite as easily, and you cried over a broken egg yolk last week like it was a funeral. So you go to the doctor, and he doesn't ask why. He just nods, scribbles, and hands you a bottle of pastel-colored calm. Problem solved. Or at least muted. They don't tell you there's a trade. That for every ounce of peace, you lose a sliver of feeling. That you stop reacting to the chaos. Not because it's stopped, but because you're floating slightly above it all, like a ghost in lipstick. The children scream. The casserole burns. Your husband forgets your anniversary for the 3rd year in a row. You smile, you nod, you say it's fine, and mean none of it. Because now your moods don't spike. But they don't soar either. You don't rage, but you don't giggle uncontrollably with your best friend in the driveway at midnight anymore either. The big feelings are gone, yes. But the good ones, they quietly packed up and left too. And the worst part? It's hard to say anything about it. After all, you're better, aren't you? You're not crying in the linen closet anymore. You're sleeping at night. You're not startled by every clatter of dropped silverware. You're doing your chores, making your lists, hosting birthday parties like a champ. No one would guess that under all of that calm, there's a hollow ache where your spark used to be. Some days, you catch yourself wondering what you'd be like without the pills. If you'd scream into a pillow, if you'd start painting again, if you'd go back to that book club and tell Martha that her opinions about Jane Eyre are wrong, and you don't care if she never invites you to her Tupperware parties again. But then the baby cries, or the toast burns, or the dog vomits on the rug, and you swallow another pill and remind yourself that rebellion is exhausting. You still read the magazines. They show women like you smiling in spotless kitchens, holding turkeys, holding hands with their husbands, holding it all together. The articles say things like, "Don't forget to take care of yourself," and then recommend a new vacuum or eyebrow pencil. You almost laugh again. Almost. Your doctor says you're doing great. Your friends say you seem so put together. Your husband says he's glad you're not so emotional anymore. You say thank you, like it's a compliment, and try not to notice how you feel absolutely nothing in response. That's the thing no one warned you about. Calm has a cost. It's paid in small, invisible transactions. A feeling here, a dream there, the edge off your anxiety, and your joy. The silence is seductive, but sometimes, in the rare moments when the house is asleep and you let yourself breathe, you miss the noise. You miss the you who used to feel things all the way down to her toes. But for now, you take the pill. Because you're not sure who you'd be without it. And because the turkey in the magazine looks like it's judging you. The bottle is empty. The refill is in the mail. You feel everything for the first time in years. It's both terrifying and, somehow, a little bit hopeful. It happens on a Tuesday, the most dangerous day, because nothing good ever happens on a Tuesday. You open the medicine cabinet, expecting the comforting rattle of chemically assisted serenity, and instead find a hollow clink that sounds like doom wearing a pastel label. You shake the bottle. Nothing. One last pill dust mote drifts out, like a sarcastic goodbye. Your first thought, this must be a mistake. Your second thought, why does my heartbeat suddenly sound like a marching band warming up? You check the drawer, the purse, under the sink, behind the towels, anywhere a rogue pill might be hiding like a tranquilized rodent. But no, the bottle is bone dry. And the pharmacy cheerfully informs you that your refill will arrive sometime this week. You want to ask if they understand that you're one emotional gust of wind away from total collapse. But you simply say thank you in the polite, brittle tone of a woman unraveling neatly. At first, nothing happens. You feel normal, or what you've come to call normal. But by mid-morning, something shifts. The world gets slightly louder, colors get brighter. The children's voices, usually muffled behind your medicated fog, suddenly hit full volume, like someone turned the emotional speakers to 11. The radio sounds too peppy. The dog looks too judgmental. Even the vacuum cleaner seems personally offended by your existence. You breathe. You can do this. You've done harder things. Childbirth, potty training, hosting Thanksgiving. You can survive a few days without pharmaceutical serenity, right? And yet, by lunchtime, your hands tremble while spreading mayonnaise. You cry briefly because the lettuce looks wilted. You snap at the toaster for being smug. You feel your emotions with a clarity that is both exhilarating and horrifying, like someone handed you a huge, powerful flashlight and said, "Here, shine this directly into your own brain." You panic call your friend, who whispers into the phone that she once ran out of her pills and had to hide in the coat closet for an hour after yelling at a loaf of bread. You don't feel reassured, but you do feel seen. As the day stretches, something unexpected happens. The world doesn't end. Yes, you feel irritable, prickly, overwhelmed. You yell when someone spills juice. You laugh too loudly at a joke on television. You get teary-eyed listening to a song you used to love before life swallowed you whole. It's like emotions have returned in high definition, and you're not entirely sure you're ready for the upgrade. But between the spikes and swells, something else flickers to life. Something you haven't felt in years, a pulse of you. You notice a thought that isn't tied to chores or pressure or performance. You catch yourself humming a song you forgot you liked. You stand at the window, watching your kids play, and instead of feeling numb or distant, you feel present. Not blissful, not serene, but awake. It's not easy. Your temper is short. Your patience is thinner than your stockings after a run. You make dinner with the emotional volatility of a Shakespearean heroine. Your husband asks if you're okay, and for once you say, "I'm not sure," and he actually listens. You look at the empty bottle again. The absence of calm reveals an uncomfortable truth. Yes, the pills softened the sharp edges, but they softened you too, the lively parts, the curious parts, the parts that wondered, dreamed, and laughed, until your stomach hurt. You don't know what this means. You're not ready to swear off help. You're not ready to leap into self-discovery like a woman in a perfume commercial running through a field of wheat. You just know that today, without the pills, you felt something real, messy, overwhelming, inconvenient, but real. Maybe that's terrifying, maybe that's hopeful, maybe it's both. You open the windows, let the real air in, and consider burning a casserole just to see what happens. For the first time, you imagine a day without calm pills, a little noisy, a little messier, maybe even a little happier. It begins with a breeze, a real one. Not the gentle hum of the oscillating fan that lives in your living room, but the kind of breeze that carries smells of grass and soil and something alive. You crack the window open, half expecting the curtains to recoil. For the first time in a long time, you let the outside in, and it feels honest. You stand barefoot in the kitchen. No lipstick, no girdle, just a robe that has seen better mornings, and a half cup of coffee that's gone tepid while you stared at the linoleum, rethinking everything. You're not sure what changed. You're not even sure when it started to shift. But something inside you has decided that the performance is due for intermission. You still make breakfast, but not with fanfare. not with toast triangles and motivational humming. Today, it's cereal in mismatched bowls. And nobody claps, but nobody complains either. Your youngest even says, "Cool, like at grandma's," as if grandma is the barometer for culinary rebellion. You tell the kids to get dressed, your voice not raised, not sugar-coated, just firm and present. They whine. You don't flinch. You breathe through it instead of reaching for a pastel capsule to help you float above it all. For once, you don't want to float. You want to plant your feet. The mail arrives. The pill refill is there. You stare at the bottle, sitting in its snug, little pharmacy bag. It hums with possibility, promising chemical silence. You place it on top of the fridge, not out of reach, just out of habit. You're not making grand declarations, just gentle refusals. The house is louder without sedation. There's yelling, there's laughter. You feel it all. It stings sometimes. Your nerves fray more easily, but your reactions are yours, raw, real, imperfect. And that imperfection feels oddly sacred, like reclaiming something you forgot was stolen. Your friend calls, the one who always sounds just a little too calm. You recognize your old voice in hers. Measured, chipper, strategically numbed. She asks if everything's okay. You say, "Not really, but I'm trying something different." She pauses, then whispers, "God, I'm jealous." You smile, because maybe rebellion starts small, not with marches or manifestos, but with honest conversations and slightly burnt grilled cheese sandwiches. Later, you let the kids make a mess painting on the patio. They drip blue gouache on the concrete. You don't flinch. You sit beside them. You paint, too. Badly. You laugh. You get paint on your knee. It stains. And you decide not to care. You haven't created something just for yourself in years. And here it is. Ugly, colourful, messy joy. You don't announce your rebellion. There's no speech, no mood board, no detox smoothies. You still cook dinner, you still fold the towels, but you skip the second vacuuming. You read a chapter of a book with no moral lesson. You play the music you like, not the music that matches the mood of the room. And when the house quiets and the day is done, you lie in bed and feel everything. The ache in your legs, the swirl of thoughts, the buzz of possibility. It's not peace, not yet, but it's real. And for the first time in a very long time, real feels better than calm. You leaf through Lady's Home Journal while your coffee goes cold. And every page is another helpful reminder that your roast isn't juicy enough, your hair isn't shiny enough, and you should probably be raising genius children while looking like Jackie Kennedy. Even when you're folding underpants, the covers smile at you with unnerving sincerity. Glossy women with pinched waists and teased hairbeam while holding golden brown turkeys the size of toddler horses. Their homes gleam. Their children are ironed. Their smiles say, "You could be this happy too if you just tried a little harder." You flip the page. More tips, more expectations. How to host the perfect brunch. How to pack a lunch that says "I care" without looking like you're trying too hard. There's no room in these pages for "I reheated spaghetti" and lost the will to live somewhere between the stove and the sink. There's a beauty feature titled "How to Stay Lovely While Scrubbing." It offers a regimen for elevating your cleaning routine into a moment of self-care. Step 1. Wear lipstick while doing dishes so your husband still sees you as desirable. Step 2. Exfoliate your elbows with lemon juice and sea salt. Step 3. Reconsider your life choices. One article helpfully reminds you that your husband's career success is directly linked to the shine of your shoes and the fluff of your mashed potatoes. You snort and accidentally spill cold coffee on the Secrets to Flawless Hostessing page. It feels appropriate. The magazine doesn't suggest less work, just better work. Efficient work. Beautiful work. All done with a smile and a string of pearls. You begin to wonder if the editors of Ladies' Home Journal are even human, or if they're just sentient curlers in a hive mind powered by meatloaf and internalized shame. Your eye twitches slightly when you reach the section titled, "Is your home too cluttered for happiness?" According to the checklist, yes. Yes, it is. Your home is 75% clutter, 20% crumbs, and 5% hope. You close the magazine and stare at your actual living room. Legos underfoot. A bra hanging from the doorknob like a tiny surrender flag, and something mysterious happening to the couch cushions. It does not spark joy, but it does spark reality. Still, you go back, because even as the pressure mounts and the comparisons sharpen, there's a strange magnetism in those glossy pages. A fantasy, perfectly cropped and carefully styled, where you could have control, where your roast never dries out, and your children thank you for your emotional labor, and your hair doesn't collapse in humidity like a disappointed souffle. It's a world where effort equals reward, where beauty brings peace, and where your only enemy is not trying hard enough. You know it's nonsense, and yet, on some level, the whisper works. So you try. You buy the better mascara. You rearrange the living room based on an article about soothing spatial flow. You roast a chicken with lemon and rosemary and cry quietly into the sink when it tastes like warm cardboard. The whisper follows you into your dreams. Try harder, smile more, roast better. And then, one afternoon, you see it. A smudge. On the cover of the latest issue. Right on the model's cheek. A printing error. But it jolts you. Because even in this plastic-perfect universe, something cracked through, and just like that, the spell starts to break. You still flip through the pages. But now, you laugh. You snort at the recipes that require 3 kinds of gelatin, and the makeup looks that require divine intervention. You start reading the magazines like a sci-fi novel. Fascinating. Bizarre. Entirely fictional. Because here's the truth. The roast can be dry, the lipstick can smudge, and the underpants can stay unfolded. You don't need a magazine to tell you how to be a woman. You already are one. You stare at your vanity, which looks more like a chemistry lab, cold creams, hot rollers, eyebrow pencils, and a mountain of bobby pins. To leave the house, you perform a ritual so elaborate you'd think you were prepping for battle, not buying lettuce. It starts with the cleansing cold creams slathered across your face like butter on toast, massaged in circular motions until your skin shines with that particular sheen that says, "This woman is about to paint her face like it owes her money." Next, a toner that stings just enough to let you know it's doing something, followed by a moisturizer that smells vaguely of gardenias and defeat. Then come the layers. Foundation that must match your neck exactly, or else the neighbor who runs the bridge club will assume you're either sick or morally questionable. Powder dusted on like you're trying to hide from the authorities. Blush strategically placed to mimic the glow of a woman who just loves ironing. Your eyebrows must be tamed with precision, not too arched, not too flat, just enough to look surprised, but not unstable. The eyeliner is applied with the unsteady hand of someone who's slept poorly for 7 years but refuses to let her inner turmoil show. You stab your eye only once, a personal best. Then, the mascara, a cruel joke in liquid form, one sneeze, and you become a raccoon in pearls. You blink furiously, fanning your lashes, hoping they don't clump into a mascara monolith. Lipstick follows, always red, always matte, always applied with the gravity of someone signing a peace treaty. Hair is its own saga. hot rollers, teasing combs. Enough hairspray to preserve a woolly mammoth. You burn your finger, curse softly, and keep going. The helmet of hair must hold, come wind or high water, or the judgment of your in-laws. You secure it with 27 bobby pins and the silent prayer of every woman who's ever feared humidity. And why all this effort? Because you might run into someone. That's it. That's the whole reason. You might run into the butcher, the mailman, or heaven forbid, Linda from the PTA who claims she wakes up looking naturally polished. She doesn't. You've seen her at the pharmacy in curlers and despair. It's not vanity. It's survival. A woman in your neighborhood leaving the house without her face on might as well walk outside in her slip. The whispers would begin before you even reach the end of the driveway. She's let herself go. Is everything all right at home? Maybe she's having a nervous condition. There is no margin for error in beauty. No room for exhaustion or apathy or just not caring. Every part of your appearance must be deliberate. Your lipstick says you're thriving. Your hair says you vacuum regularly. Your earrings say you still care about life, liberty, and coordinating accessories. The pressure is invisible but crushing. You don't want to be the woman who's given up. You don't want to be pitied, so you keep scrubbing, applying, fixing, refixing, smiling. Because if you look tired, then you must be tired. And if you look beautiful, maybe no one will ask if you're barely holding it together. Eventually, you step back from the vanity. The transformation is complete. You look like someone who has her life together, even if you feel like someone who just had a 3-round boxing match with a mascara wand. You grab your purse, straighten your girdle, and head out to buy a single head of lettuce. Because in 1960s suburbia, beauty isn't self-expression, it's armor. And today, you're wearing all of it. Every holiday is a chance to win or lose the title of Best Homemaker. Christmas means 10 kinds of cookies. Halloween means hand-sewn costumes. And Thanksgiving means you spend 3 days making stuffing that still tastes like last year's regrets. There are no breaks in suburbia, just themed competitions with decorative napkins. You used to think holidays were joyful. Now, they feel like quarterly exams in a domestic decathlon. And you're not just expected to pass. You're expected to dazzle, to outperform, to host and roast and glitter glue your way into seasonal greatness while keeping your lipstick matte and your smile serene. Let's start with Christmas. The catalogs arrive in October, like harbingers of guilt. Every page screams magic and memory-making. But what they actually mean is, you'll need to string 2,000 lights, bake 96 perfectly shaped cookies, wrap every gift with bows made from endangered ribbon species, and produce a Norman Rockwell-level holiday morning without anyone crying. Especially you. You try. You cut sugar cookies into reindeer. Half of them come out looking like mangled poodles. The tree is up, but the cat's in it. Your husband keeps offering to help by sitting nearby and occasionally holding a spool of tape. The kids ask why their gifts don't look like the ones in the Sears catalog. You tell them love comes in all shapes. Mostly rectangular, mostly socks. Halloween is another endurance test. The expectation? Hand-sewn costumes, so charming they could star in a department store window. The reality? You haven't sewn a straight line since home ec. You spend 3 nights making a ghost costume only for your child to announce they're now a robot. You wrap them in foil, tape a cereal box to their head, and call it futuristic minimalism. Pinterest doesn't exist yet, but if it did, you'd burn it. Then there's Thanksgiving. 3 days of prep, 12 dishes, and 1 nervous breakdown. The stuffing never turns out right. The cranberry sauce never jiggles. The turkey always cooks unevenly. dry breast, soggy legs, emotional damage. Your mother-in-law watches from the couch, sipping coffee and making suggestions like she's hosting a cooking show called Passive-Aggressive with Doris. You smile. You refill glasses. You carve the turkey with the precision of someone imagining it's her doctor, the one who said you were a bit sensitive. You pretend the whole thing is fulfilling, even as your feet throb and your waistband cuts off circulation to your hopes. And it's not just the work, it's the performance. The pressure to make the holidays look effortless, as if you woke up and the table just became a winter wonderland, as if hand-dipped candles and thematic centerpieces are just part of your natural aura. You're judged by invisible referees, the neighbors, the PTA, your great-aunt Margaret, who still brings her own pie just in case. You start to notice something strange. The men get praised for carving, for lifting the turkey, for bringing store-bought pie. You, on the other hand, are expected to operate like a holiday machine with no switch. The better you perform, the less anyone notices how hard you're working. You become a festive blur of tinsel and exhaustion. But still, somewhere in the middle of all the stress, there's a moment when someone laughs too hard at the dinner table, when your child hugs you in a crooked robot costume and says, "This was the best Halloween ever," when the reindeer cookies get eaten, tails and all, and no one cares that they're a little deformed. You breathe. You sip your wine. You look at the chaos you created, and for just a second, you feel something like joy. Messy, imperfect, real joy. And then you remember Easter is in 4 months, and the table linens need to be pastel. You're the unofficial emotional support animal for everyone on the block, kids, husband, neighbors, even the family dog. You listen, soothe, nod, and swallow another pill, while quietly wondering who is supposed to keep you together. From sunup to sundown, you're the silent scaffolding that holds the entire circus tent in place. The lion tamer, the tightrope walker, the ringmaster, except no one's cheering for you. They're too busy asking where you put their socks. You're expected to remain calm, polished, and perpetually available, even as your own internal monologue sounds like a squirrel stuck in a blender. Your kids come to you with problems. Scraped knees, broken toys, existential meltdowns about sandwiches cut the wrong way. Your husband vents about work stress, his car's mysterious rattle, and why the coffee doesn't taste like it does at the office. You nod. You reassure. You hand out snacks and compliments like a sentient vending machine with a gentle smile and a caffeine addiction. Even the neighbor, Linda, whose voice could pierce titanium, knocks on your door just to say she's worried about Barbara's begonias, which is code for "I need to complain but don't want to seem like I'm complaining." You offer her lemonade in your left ear, and somewhere between her critique of mulch and her husband's recent colonoscopy, you feel the last few threads of your mental stability whisper goodbye. You're not allowed to break. Not really. The moment your voice cracks or your smile slips, people ask, "Are you okay?" Not out of concern, but out of confusion, as if the vending machine just spat out a poem instead of a granola bar. You reassure them, "I'm fine." The most versatile lie in D, the English language. Your role is never officially defined, but it's understood. You're the glue, the manager of moods, the emotional translator. You take your child's tantrum, your husband's sulking, the neighbor's anxiety, and you turn it into peace, sandwiches, and polite laughter, all while ignoring the flicker in your chest that says, "I need a break," because a break implies you've dropped the ball. And dropping the ball is a luxury reserved for people who don't plan 4 birthday parties a year and know the difference between dusty rose and mauve. Sometimes you fantasize about what it would feel like to scream into a pillow, or take a bath uninterrupted, or cry without immediately having to explain yourself to someone holding a crayon and asking for more juice, but instead, you press the chaos down like dough, smoothing it into something that looks like control. You even start to forget what your own emotions feel like unfiltered. No pill, no polite nodding, no tight-lipped smile. You become a master of emotional gymnastics, triple flipping your own feelings into oblivion while performing a flawless beam routine of daily patience. You stick the landing every time, because if you don't, the whole household wobbles. And the irony? No one sees it. Your strength is invisible. The calmer you appear, the more they lean on you. The better you function, the more they forget you're functioning at all. You could be silently screaming into the void, and someone would still ask what's for dinner. But one day, maybe, you pause, just long enough to ask yourself the dangerous question, what if I didn't keep it together? What if you let yourself unravel a little? Let someone else refill the emotional picture for once? What if you let your own feelings show, not the polished, hostess-approved ones, but the loud, unfiltered, inconvenient ones? You might be met with confusion, awkward silence, maybe even someone offering you another pill. Or maybe, just maybe, someone else finally says, "You know what? I can handle this." And that moment, as terrifying as it is freeing, might be your first real exhale in years. And now, as we slowly step away from the pastel kitchens, the casseroles shaped like geological formations, the vacuum cleaners that roared like wounded dinosaurs, and the ever-present hum of "Are you doing enough?" Let's take a moment to settle into something softer. You've made it through an entire day in the life of a 1960s suburban mother, one of the most polished, pressured, and paradoxical chapters in modern history, a world where expectations were impossibly high, smiles were mandatory, and the calm pills in the medicine cabinet promised to make everything easier, even when they quietly made everything harder. You navigated morning breakfasts that belonged in a diner, afternoon chores that defied physics, social clubs powered entirely by repressed emotions, and a culture that insisted you be perfect at all times, even if perfection required pharmaceutical intervention. You balanced children, gossip, casseroles, beauty standards, and the crushing weight of mid-century optimism, all while pretending you were absolutely 100% fine. But through all the noise, all the dishes, all the pills meant to smooth the rough edges of life, something still shone through. Resilience. A deep, stubborn resilience. The kind that generations of women carried without applause, quietly, gracefully, and often invisibly, because beneath the hairspray shell and the polite smiles were humans who were simply trying their best with what they were given. So tonight, as you slip into your clean bed, without a girdle, without curlers, without a casserole waiting for the morning, and listen to the quiet hum of your fan, maybe offer a small, gentle thank you, not just for modern comforts, though indoor plumbing and antidepressants that aren't barbiturates are lovely miracles. But thank you to the women who came before you, who navigated eras that demanded perfection at any cost, and still managed to carve out moments of laughter, connection, rebellion, and hope. Because history may be strange, a little tragic, occasionally absurd, and full of questionable recipes, but it's also proof that people, especially the ones holding everything together, are resilient, tender, and quietly unstoppable. So let your breath soften, let your shoulders drop, and let yourself drift, knowing you have survived far less glamorous days than this and far less medicated ones. Good night.